Welcome back, computer art people. What we are going to do today is you are going to use a new drawing mode in Illustrator. So let's go ahead and open up Illustrator. And some of you actually may have used this by accident pressing through the different buttons, but today we are going to use the Perspective Grid tool. I consider another drawing mode because it's a different way to draw. So go ahead and File New and just have one artboard for today. You can name it Perspective Grid if you'd like, or you can name it something different when you export it and save it as JPEG. So on your artboard, if you click on this Perspective Grid tool, it gives you this. So I know some of you accidentally turned this on and then you couldn't figure out how to get it off, because if I click on the button again, it doesn't do anything. And if I hold down Shift P, it doesn't do anything. If I, right here where it says Shift P, that will activate it, but it doesn't deactivate it. The way you deactivate this grid is actually hold down Control, Shift, and then press I, and then you will take the grid off of your page here. Since we are going to be using it today, we're actually going to reactivate it by clicking back on that Perspective Grid tool box. Now this widget in the upper left-hand corner here tells you which part of this grid you will be working on. This grid is also customizable, so you can move all of the points around. So for example, if I click on this arrow right here, I can drag the bottom plane up and down, and as you can see, it's changing the perspective of my orange and blue sides. If I click and hold on this circle, I can extend my vanishing points out. For any of you that have taken drawing and painting or fundamentals, we've talked about vanishing points in perspective line drawing. You can also click and move just the boxes up. You can also move the actual plane itself by clicking on some of these sliders on the bottom. To have it with a perfect seam in the middle, I kind of line up those diamonds in the top. This one will actually control the orange one. So I can move this around if I'm trying to create different shapes and have them in different parts of the plane. So for the actual use of the widget up in the top corner, if I click on the other part of my cube here, whichever one I have active is the one that I will draw on. So right now the blue one, if I draw a shape or use the pen tool or the pencil tool, it will be in perspective on this side. If I click on the right side, it'll do the same thing. So the orange side of the cube to the orange actual plane on the picture. If I draw anything, it will be in line with this perspective going to this vanishing point. And the bottom cube, which is now green, will give you something that will be on the bottom of your picture. So let's get into actually drawing some actual pictures or some actual shapes on here. If I click back on my blue side, and for example, if I take my rectangle tool, if I click anywhere on here, it'll actually tell me if I'm intersecting one of the points. But I'm just going to go ahead and click right here. If I drag this shape out, see how it's in perspective, so it goes back down to this vanishing point. It will line up with the bottom, it will line up with the top. So if I have that blue part of my widget activated, it will be in perspective going on the blue vanishing point. So let's just say I let it go here. Now I can fill in the color of the shape, and I can add any other effects to my shapes like we've been doing in the past couple classes as well. But if I want to make a perspective shape on this side, then I have to click on the right part of my widget. And now if I do the same shape on this one, it'll be going down to the orange vanishing point. So if I let that go, it'll make that one here. Now say I have my right part of the widget activated, but I click over on the blue side and I try to drag down, it's not going to go down to this vanishing point. It's still going to be in line with this vanishing point all the way down here. So no matter where you put the shape, it all depends on which part of this box you have activated. Same thing if I switch it over to my bottom horizontal part of the grid, and I'm going to do this in a different color so you'll be able to see it. If I click over here on the blue, it's still not going back to my blue vanishing point. It's going back to my bottom part. It's in line with this grid on the bottom that's in green. So there's my blue. This would be like a floor if I'm trying to build a building. And I would have to arrange these in different parts to make the building kind of overlap the way I would want to if that's what I was building. So what you are going to do today is you're going to play around with the Perspective Grid tool, and you're going to create a couple different shapes for me. So let me go ahead and first clear all of my shapes off of here. So what I'm going to do is take my selection tool, click and hold, and drag over all of my shapes so they're all inside my selective box, and then I'll just hit delete to clear them all out. So you are going to make a total of 15 shapes. And the first ones are going to be on your blue side, so you need to make sure you have your left grid activated. And you can do whatever shapes you want, but they will be on the blue side going down to this vanishing point. 6 shapes in perspective. You can use whatever shapes you want out of your shape tool. Even if I do a star here, it's still going to be in perspective. If I want to move it, I'll have to take my selection tool and move it down. I go resize if I need to. So you're going to do 6 shapes basically on each side. So I have my star here. I could switch over to my ellipse tool, and I could do a circle, which would also be in perspective going down. And you can change the colors to whatever you want. So when you switch over to the right side of the grid, then your 6 other shapes will be here. So if I go back to my polygon tool, I can do a polygon that would be in perspective going down to my orange vanishing point. So 6 shapes on the blue side and 6 shapes on your orange side. The other 3 shapes, what you're going to do is you're going to make some 3-dimensional shapes for me. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see some room on the top and bottom here. Because even if I have one of these widgets side activated, say I have my blue side activated here, if I take my rectangle tool, and even if I'm not right on top of the boxes, if I draw a shape over here, it's still going to be in line with my vanishing point. So if I have a blue side here, and then I switch to my right part of the grid, and I make another one here going back down to that vanishing point, I need to try to line up my corners the best I can. And then I would need to fill in the bottom part here. So now if I switch to my horizontal part of the grid, and I can make a square or a rectangle that would fill in the bottom part of my cube here. So what I would do to make this more visible, I'm going to change some of the colors. So maybe I take this part of the blue, and I'm going to make that a little bit darker of a blue. And then maybe I take the bottom part of the blue, and I'm going to make that even darker. So I'm going to get closer to black here. So I have some different levels in my cube, so this makes it look more 3-dimensional. So you're going to draw 3 more shapes that are just like this, where you have 3 3-dimensional cubes. You can do one here, you can do one here, and then one on the bottom. Because if I go all the way over to my very right side here, the closer you get to the vanishing point, the more sharp of an angle your cubes are going to be. You can try that if you'd like, but I like to be able to see them. But when you make the cube, you need 3 different sides. The left side of the widget, which is blue, the right side of the widget, which is orange, and then the bottom side of the widget, which is green. So each one that you do, you should have 3 different colors here. So if I'm on my blue side now and I want to match it up here, when you get that anchor point and you drag it down, you'll know that you're connected to it. And if I let that go, I need to fill in my bottom, so I need to go to my green part of the widget. Again, now I'm on the anchor, so I'm connected on the bottom, and I just need to kind of line them up the best I can. But once I get to this point, I need to fix my colors to make sure that I can see each side. So double click, change the color, and maybe this one I'm going to make really light. This kind of makes it look more cube-like. So I have 1, 2, and then anywhere on the bottom. So 6 perspective shapes on the blue side, 6 perspective shapes on the orange side, and then 3 separate cubes. When you are finished, you go to File, Export, change it from an AutoCAD drawing to a JPEG. You can leave it as perspective grid or whatever you want to name it, and then make a new folder in your home drive for perspective grid drawing and save it into there.